Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. I'm Mary Keren, and I'm here with my co-host, Joseph Katz.
Mary,
Joseph, what's the word today?
it's great to see you. Been a minute since we did a recording, so
I
great to
know.
see you. Hope you're enjoying the summertime when we're recording this.
Yeah, I am, and I hope you are too. Uh, so to be a little silly, I was in a pickleball tournament here at Nassau Financial Group. We had one. I was the first up. Didn't do well, but that's okay. The team that we played, the first team, they actually won. So my claim to fame is, hey, the team we played, we were the first up. They won the whole tournament. So I didn't feel so badly. But it was a lot of fun. We were paired up. It was doubles, and it was a great time, and always enjoying pickleball and learning the doubles rules. So here we are today.
You can't win them all, Mary, as they say.
You can't win them all, absolutely. But having fun is important, and I think we talk about joy and fun, and that's a little bit of a segue, Joseph, to introduce our amazing guests that we have on. And I just want to say one more thing: the amazing guests we have on, I would say that many of them are referred by other guests. So I thank our guests, our many talented guests who think so highly of us, that they will refer their colleagues and their friends. So thank you.
This is true. Well, and today's guest was introduced by a former guest. So it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Keren Eldad. She's also known as Coach Keren. She's a top executive coach helping high achievers from Olympic athletes, we're going to dive into that, to Fortune 500 leaders, and to that, reach extraordinary success as the best-selling author of Gilded, Break Free from the Cage of Ambition, Perfectionism, and the Relentless Pursuit of More. She challenges ambitious individuals to redefine success on their own terms. Keren, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. And I definitely want to hear about the Olympic athletes and Fortune 500 leaders. So I'll give you the floor.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here, Joseph. It's so nice to be here, Mary. And thank you for the lighthearted introduction. Pickleball is huge where I live, Austin, Texas. So I really feel that and receive that. I am, as you said, an executive coach. I'm a professional speaker, and I'm the author of a new book called Gilded that you just kindly mentioned. But I think to the most important point, I'm known for helping people break free from the shackles of burnout and overwhelm and perfectionism, which are things that stunt our growth. And that honestly, by the age of 55, we really have to drop like it's hot, because it is. And I do this and focus here primarily because I am what I like to call a recovering overachiever, a recovering overdoer. And today I help people to basically break the same shackles that I broke. And I'm very excited to have this conversation about how to do just that with y'all, so that everybody can have a third act as delicious as my own.
Well, first, I got to give you kudos for that. You absorbed the Texas right there.
Did you see that? I know.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's fabulous. And I've been so impressed with your book, with your work, and there's so much here that I want to ask you. But I think really what's burning for me is, how do you recognize and then take that first step? Because I just think that's huge, I would think.
It's $1 million question. So the first thing I want to say is, if anybody has been turned off by the word overachiever, high performer, let's bring it down to the world so that you can really identify yourself within this. Overachiever or high achiever is anyone who goes about anything with enormous intensity. You can be an overachieving parent. Every single one of us knows a hypervigilant parent, right? Every single one of us knows somebody who just takes tulip growing a little farther than normal would take tulip growing. So very many of us are able to become focused in the, or to the degree of obsession. And that's really what I'm talking about in particular. The signs that you are now in the clutches of something that has gone awry are emotional signs. They are not only result signs. So the most obvious is going to be your results become stagnant. You feel stuck. You can't move. You're hitting some kind of a ceiling. Many people will start to suffer when they feel this way. But the emotional signs are the ones I would really pay attention to. And they are boredom, aimlessness, restlessness, this weird nagging feeling that your midlife crisis isn't quite over yet, and you're still wondering, is that all there is? And why does nothing taste so good to me? That's where I really believe you're in the clutches of the overachievement paradox that I discuss in my book and that I'm happy to elaborate on. And that's where I would really pay attention, because that means that your success has not produced its promise. The success promise is life feels great. That's the whole point. And if it doesn't feel great, then something's wrong with the success.
Well, so I feel like I need to get a couch and lay down and have you have a one-on-one
I
conversation.
agree. I agree, Joseph. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, wow, I have so many follow-up questions, but I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I want to dive into some of those things a little bit more. You mentioned boredom, restlessness, burnout. I think we all feel that at some point in time for one reason or another. Is it something that builds and builds and builds, or is it just show up, or how do you break through it? Like,
Yeah. Well, there's normal boredom.
A lot of our listeners are in that age range that you mentioned, right? That 55 plus.
There's normal boredom and there's a numbing, right? And so the distinction here is also important. Like you, I'm old enough to remember very vividly the 80s and enormous swaths of time with absolutely nothing to do that didn't bother me at all, because we were completely okay with not having Netflix on account of Netflix wasn't invented yet. But today, when you have people who are literally scrolling for 3 hours at a time, they're engaged in numbing behaviors. Workaholism is a numbing behavior. Over busyness is a numbing behavior. Shopping is a numbing behavior. You can start to understand that your boredom has become something toxic, something very, very difficult, and you're trying to escape from something. That's when I would truly start to pay attention and go, something's off here. What am I trying to escape from? What am I avoiding feeling? What am I avoiding dealing with? And most often it's simply at the root of your success. It's that you've been pursuing the wrong things. And as a result of that, they've produced the wrong or the dissatisfying result. And our only way out of that, unfortunately, is to go inward.
So going inward, what does that look like?
The thing about Gilded is that it's a Trojan horse, Mary. I wrote it. I don't know if you noticed, but there are 12 steps in it. And it's literally designed to mimic another very famous 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It begins with a very, very similar trajectory. So I'm going to reveal to you the first step right now. The first step to going inward is to just admit that your life is not as good as it looks. It doesn't feel as good as you are portraying to the Joneses. You are more often than not worried. You are more often than not thinking about the other shoe dropping. You are catastrophizing. You are numbing. You are not in the relationship dynamics that truly would fulfill you and make you feel peaceful. Your finances don't please you, and your prospects or your career situation is not making you wake up eager for the day. That's it. If you can already do that, we can start to work with you. But the thing is, especially with overachievers, it's sort of like when you work with an addict, and I've worked with many people who are dealing with addiction. They almost always say to you, Mary, I can handle this. I can stop this anytime. That means that you're nowhere near able to hear the following steps. So the first has to be like what happened to me in my life. This isn't working and I can't pretend anymore. And from there, we can truly start to dive into your thinking patterns and how to overwrite them.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say one thing that I thought about when you just said that. So many years ago, and Joseph knows I was in the fitness business, and I had a client. She was a psychologist. Her name was Maureen, and I can see her clearly. And she used to say that 50% is just recognizing. And I was very, very young then. And I was like, what are you talking about, Maureen? I really couldn't comprehend exactly what she was saying. Like, I heard her words and they made sense to me, but I really didn't recognize what she was really getting at. And I think that you just kind of pointed that out in a way, even though I know we've just scratched the surface. So I just wanted to comment because she was someone I deeply respected and trusted.
Maureen was absolutely right. Think about it this way. 50% of your vacation is deciding where to go. Everything else is logistics. It's actually literally just tactics. It's so simple. It's one foot before the other. But the deciding where to go, that's the biggest part. And when we make the decision that I am not going to stay here, I am going to go to there, the rest we can literally fill for you with the following steps.
So we've spoken to lots of coaches and professional development people over time, personally and on this podcast. I've never heard anyone draw the parallel between addiction and personal development and self-improvement, whatever the right words are that you want to use. So that's just very interesting. And obviously you wrote the book with the 12 steps. So it's a thread that you're obviously pulling. You talked about like people catastrophizing in their mind and other things. Like, so what are people doing how are they going to break that? Right. So everyone does it to some extent, whether they're worrying about their money or they're worrying about the world falling apart. Like, what's some basic, really simple things that people could do to like stop, and reset?
Yeah, I love it. So the beginning of the process is something I like to call, here comes the 90s reference, stop, collaborate, and listen. Shout out to Vanilla Ice, who was much maligned. Let's begin by saying that the first thing that really, really matters is stop and notice that you are an addict. All of us are. I'm sorry to tell you, but this analogy is not trite. It's not something that I throw in a facile manner. It's something I really believe. We are nervous system junkies, and our nervous system is completely addicted to what's known as parasympathetic mode, also known as fight or flight. That busyness is conditioning. It's a conditioning that's come to us from society, and that's made us overzealous in the direction of tulips or children or our careers. It doesn't matter what you apply it to. Now, of course, this can be much exacerbated. Wait till you meet Olympic athletes. Like, that's a one-track addicted mind completely, and it sort of has to be, right? But the first thing to do is to recognize this. The second thing to do is to collaborate, which means to ask the questions about whether this is really working for me and how can I start to maneuver this differently. And this is where we come to my second principle in the book, which is stop playing not to lose, start playing to win. Most of us think that we are playing to win. We think we're all Michael Jordan. We're on the court. We're ready to hit that basketball in the basket every single time. But this is not true. The vast majority of us are so terrified of what we're going to lose because we are obsessive, because we are catastrophizing, because we are addicted. That's what perpetuates our patterns of addiction to busyness, that we cannot but play defense. People do not recognize this. And then I tell them to go and rewatch the greatest movie of the last decade, Joseph, which of course, as you know, is Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians opens with a game and closes with a game. It is based in game theory. Game theory is a very famous philosophical understanding at the heart of economic theory, at the heart of political science theory, that says that essentially we can predict how players will play in a win-lose situation. And that's kind of the fallacy. The fallacy that opens that movie is she's playing, the protagonist, Rachel Chu, is playing poker against her TA. She sees that he has a hand. She has a very bad hand, but she notices that he's fidgeting. What does she do? She moves all her chips to the middle of the table. What does he do? He folds. And then we see that he had a really good hand. He could have easily won. So why did he fold? He folded because he was so afraid of the potential loss that he didn't calculate the potential win. So the second thing we have to do is we have to start understanding that our behaviors are actually hedging our bets against loss and against staying stagnant. And if we continue to play this way, we're not going to move. And that will finally bring us to the third step, which is listen. Why don't you start paying attention to your thoughts, to your beliefs? Start questioning what your premises are and start actually engaging with them like a person who's not reaching immediately for the answer or the solution or right back into the reactive busy pattern, and can actually start to dissolve these and overwrite these. In a nutshell, that is the first sequence in this book. If you're able to do that, man, the rest is going to be, as Maureen said to Mary, peanut.
Yeah.
That's a lot of information right there for those who are listening. There's a lot. I'm going to re-listen to that 2-minute segment again, because there's a lot there.
And I think getting your book Coach Keren, I think is also vital. And it
Yeah.
is definitely different than anything I've begun to read. So I haven't finished it. I'm very intrigued, but I'm also interested in you talk about the mindset detox in the book. What is it, and how can people start to do this protocol today? Because everything you said, great. This is a lot of information, but it's not just a lot of information. It's a lot of deep thinking, and all the things you said about scrolling, and we're all so busy, and we like to be busy, or we think we do, but we're not necessarily pausing to find out what's really going on. So, talk about the detox mindset.
Oh, listen, this is the part where I'm going to start to reveal that my sexy accent is from Israel. And so my philosophy is deeply rooted in a way of thinking that I had to overwrite in order to live a more peaceful life. And the mindset detox is what's going to follow when you really start to listen. When you really start to listen and question all of your premises, because you're realizing that you've been playing not to lose, you've not been playing to win. To play not to lose means that you're going to be engaged in constant battle for the rest of your life. This is no way to live. I personally don't want to live from putting out one fire to putting out another fire. And I realized that in my 30s, so I got really lucky. At this juncture, I truly started to understand that the next stage will be to truly question the recurring thought patterns that keep me in this martyr cycle, in this obsessive cycle. And there are 5. Now, I learned that there are 5 not only as a coach. I've been a suicide counselor for a very, very long time. We all have the same 5 patterns. They're absolutely in your varietal, your flavor, but they're going to be the same every time. And most of them are around negativity or doubt, insecurity, self-doubt, resentment, and blame, which are absolute poison. They're not just regular toxins. They're complete garbage. Impatience, which I think the young suffer from a little bit more than us. Perhaps I'm wrong about that. And number 5 is relentless pursuit. I phrase it a little bit differently in the book, but I want people to then start to understand that just as you can put toxins in your body today, particularly my clients who are from Los Angeles, never cease to talk about the ills of gluten, sugar, and white flour and caffeine. And over time, they can accumulate in your body and create disease. The same thing happens with your thoughts. If you start to really check your thoughts for recurring patterns of judgment, of doubt, of blame, etc., and you really start to work with these, and I have an entire protocol, just like a diet for your mind, to work these out of your system, you will start moving in a much more peaceful way. You will stop the patterns, and you will ultimately really build a new life for yourself. And if I could do it, an Israeli, so Israeli, I used to land on people like a sumo wrestler at the slightest. Anybody can.
I love that. Joseph, I'm going to interrupt just before you ask another question. You were talking about, diet, like our nutritional diet. And so I love the analogy that you used. And I know our friend Catherine Chadwick talks about that with the mind, the diet for our mind. So I think that's very interesting. But like any exercise or any fitness regime, right, there has to be some regularity, reflection, and also muscle memory to whatever you adopt to do that regularly. So I just thought that was an interesting analogy that you used.
Absolutely. And the tool, just to be clear, is daily. I don't think that I wouldn't revert back to my former self if I quit, even for a day. We are all creatures of habits, and we are all beholden to a mind that ultimately operates from fear. The mind or the brain's function is to keep us alive, not to make us happy. So this really does take rigorous devotion.
So before I dive in, we've had lots of guests. We try to laugh a little bit with them, and I usually try to throw in some pop culture references. And so you get an A+ for bringing more pop culture references to a show than anyone else in the past. So
thank you very much. And I haven't even brought up Seinfeld yet.
I'm waiting for that. And Joseph, she definitely has you outnumbered.
I don't want to get so too far off track here, but when I met Keren for the first time, I was like, okay, well, this is gonna be an interesting conversation. She's like 25 years old, and clearly she's not. I mean, I don't.
I look fantastic, though.
You do.
That so that people know.
No, not going to lie. That is very true.
I was like,
That,
wow,
that is
she's
very
closer,
true, Coach Keren.
closer in age to us, clearly based on the references. I want to dig into the fear thing for a minute,
Yeah.
because you've brought it up a couple of times. And when before we started the show, I was telling you that you're playing to win versus playing not to lose were the points that like popped out at me. So maybe dive a little deeper if you wouldn't mind, or just discuss ways people can overcome fear. Because if you think about who's listening to this show, retirees, everyone's always afraid they're going to run out of money, right? That's a big fear.
Yes.
What am I going to do when I retire? What am I going to? And there's a lot of fear, whether they acknowledge it or not, which I realize is step 1 or 2 or something. Maybe we could just dive in that, because I think playing to win across every stage of life is important, but it may even be more relevant to people later in life who may think that they have nothing to play for anymore. Or they may just think, I'm
exactly.
sailing out now, and I'm just going to relax, enjoy life.
Yeah, good point.
Absolutely right, which actually is not their true belief or true desire. It's just something that they've reverted to because of the brain's default to fear. Let's address the top 2 fears, the key fears of people in midlife crisis onwards. The first is the fear of irrelevance. I don't matter anymore. I'm going to fade to gray. There's nothing else to do here. It's too late for me. It's too late for me to XYZ. The second is I will run out of money because I am running out of time. Both of these are complete nonsense. And the only way they actually come true is if you continue to play not to lose. If you continue to play not to lose, you're going to take the easy way out. Like the brain always will take the first excuse that comes your way when you go on a diet, right? If you're not 100% resolved to win this thing and to lose the weight, then the first ice cream that comes your way, or in my case, comes my way, I'm out. Give me the ice cream. So what we have to understand first and foremost is that our desire has to become bigger than this. And for our desire to become bigger than this, I want to recommend that everybody start hanging out with weirdos like me who believe that you can and you will. People who are desirous, people who are excited, people who really want to reinvent life. And you don't have to even know them. You can just listen, for example, to this podcast. You can listen to podcasts like Wiser Than Me, hosted by the great Julia Louis-Dreyfus, only women over 70 who are talking about their next marriage, who are talking about their next project, who are talking about their next workout, and start to understand and expand your mind to what's possible. The fear, Joseph, is coming from one place, and that place is the brain's response to uncertainty. Nothing freaks us out more than uncertainty. To demonstrate this, I want you to imagine for a second 2 scenarios. Scenario A, you're in a cave, it's well lit, and a bear is biting you on the arm. This is terrifying, and it hurts, but you see what happened. Scenario 2, the cave is pitch dark. Something has bit you. Which is way more terrifying. It's scenario 2. And that's exactly what we're doing in the midlife crisis. We're going, well, I don't know what it is, so it's really much scarier than I think it is, so I don't want to do anything, so I'm just going to take the easiest way out. I'm going to ride out this marriage that hasn't been good for 17 years, and I'm just going to stay here and wait for my gold watch and my points and exit stage right at 65, because for some reason we still think that's a retirement age, and just do what I need to do. And who needs to pick up pickleball? Enough is enough, right? I've worked out enough. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to take it easy now. The problem is your soul will keep screaming at you. And so I want to implore everyone to make the consideration that there is another way. When I was broke as a joke, I thought, well, this can't be it. So for better or worse, I'm going to figure out how to make money. And I started to literally read wealth consciousness books, learn how to invest, build my own business. These are crazy things to do in your 40s, but I did. They're even crazier in your 50s and 60s, but my clients have again and again and again. This is just a question of will, just a question of desire. It's exactly the same with the career. I want to implore everyone, and I've had this discussion with Mary, to consider that most of us, according to the statistics, will die in our 80s. That means that if you're 55 right now, you got 25, 30 more years easy. That's not a small chunk of change. A 40-year-old sees that and goes, that's a ton of time. So you should too. And there's no reason to fade to gray. My dad, he's a state employee. He's a diplomat and was an Israeli ambassador. And so the protocol for him was at 67, you retire whether you like it or not. And he accepted this. But after a year, he said to me, I don't know, I just don't like it. And I thought, that's reason enough, don't you think? He has moved into becoming a spokesperson for one of the big activist groups in Israel. He's traveling the world and evangelizing, basically continuing to do his job. He's picked up new hobbies. There's no reason to fade to gray. And I love that. And I really hope that everybody meets that fear with unparalleled desire. I hope that answered your question, Joseph.
Yeah, this is going to be an episode I know I'm going to listen to again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking of so many people that I think would benefit from this. But I have a couple of things. First of all, kudos for your dad. I love that he said that in front of you and that you replied and responded and he took action. So,
Yeah.
apples don't fall far from the tree branches.
Isn't that true?
Yes. The irrelevant piece, interesting. My husband's 4 years older than me. He has actually decided he's going to get his PhD and he just started his first course. And I love that about him. He's always wants to improve, wants to do, but I was thinking about the irrelevant piece. That's where I'm going with this comment sort of question. I do think that's probably more common.
Yes.
I've actually I talked to someone who she's a flight attendant and she left her job and then she started working again. So she unretired. And I asked her why she did. And she said, I felt like I was becoming irrelevant. So I work a couple days a week. I choose my flights that I'm on. So, I don't do the long travels anymore because I don't want to. And so I think irrelevancy is a big ticket item to explore a little bit. What are some talking points, or you can even relate to in your book, that you believe really focuses on that and helps individuals move forward?
This is my favorite question of all because it allows me to call out my favorite chapter in the book, which is chapter 7, and it's about finding your purpose. The first thing I want to say is when you're in your 50s or 60s, what do you got to lose? Come on. You don't need to unretire and go back to something. You can actually decide to just go for it and try something that you've always wanted to try. Our mutual friend, Catherine, who was a guest on your show, who connected us, she was a nurse and she decided not only to unretire and go back, but to really reinvent herself in a new discipline that she has really just pursued with the zeal of a convert. I mean, truly incredible and impactful what she's done over the next decade when she made that decision. This is the time, I believe, to really do all the exercises in the purpose section to come back to what you truly are, what you truly prefer, what you've always preferred, things you love, things you do naturally. Now, believe it or not, Mary, most of us don't ask ourselves that question. We really don't inquire. We think more, what's going to make money? What's going to be viable? What's going to look good on LinkedIn? Which, by the way, I think at this age, I have to say, really sounds like nonsense to me. At this point, I really wanted to remember who I was when I was 6 and what I really like to do naturally and what I would do if nobody paid me. And I encourage people to go to the book, do these exercises in earnest, and let anything that comes through you come out. And then watch what happens to your career, to your relevance, to your feeling of being alive, which is what relevance really is. In my case, I came up with something really interesting when I started to do these exercises on myself. And I recognized that the only thing I really love to do and that I would do if nobody paid me is talk.
I love that.
Hey, Kathy, I mean, if we did switch the conversation to Seinfeld, like this would go 2 hours long with no problems. And then I thought, my mom's question popped into my head. How are you going to make money doing that? And I pushed mom away as per usual. My mother is a wonderful person, by the way. Mom, if you're listening, I love you, but you're a terrible, terrible cheerleader. And I realized that that's it. If I can untangle from the need to make this demonstrable, make this viable, make this a career move, I could just do it. I could just sit down and write motivational talks. I could sit down and write books. I could have some fun around here. And that was that. That was the beginning of the transition. I encourage everybody to do that because relevance is about really allowing yourself to live as you are, to shine your light on yourself, not anybody else's.
So, Keren, I almost forgot. You mentioned weirdos before. So my wife will say to me, "Why do you always gravitate to the weirdos?" Because I actually love them, right? They're the ones who are not thinking that. And I mentioned where I live before, so it's a very cookie cutter sort of community. But I love the people that stand out because they're doing things differently. That they're not afraid to not follow the crowd. They're not afraid to try something different. And sometimes they fail, and sometimes they succeed, and it's the journey, right? It's the whole process. So I am 100% with you on that. I'm glad you consider us weirdos. I'm honored to be called a weirdo. But before we end our show here, we ask all of our guests a final question, and Mary will wrap up the show. And this has been one of my favorites of recent memory, but I'm sure
Same here.
all of our children are our favorites, but this was definitely a different vibe.
Yeah.
You are very passionate, very energetic, very smart. You've done a bunch of things. What gets you up in the morning? Why do you do this as opposed to anything else that you could do?
It's the only thing I can do. I made a decision a long time ago that if I got myself out of the hole, I would take everybody I can with me. I believe it's my responsibility to take everybody I can with me to the other side, because once you discover that you can live life a different way, there is literally nothing else you want to do than just make sure that everyone that touches your life at least gets a glimpse of it, of what's possible. That's the job. That's what gets me up every single day, even though some days are full of weirdos.
And I do love weirdos also, as long as they're not mean. I actually prefer them.
Same. I don't like mean at all. I
Yeah.
love weirdos.
Yeah, I do too. I always have, and I love that.
Mean is not weirdo. Mean is just
Yeah,
Mean
but
is
if
just
someone, yeah, I agree with that. So when you just spoke though, the last couple sentences, I got almost teared up.
Yeah. It's a joyful way to make a living. And I think that's another thing that's really wonderful about
Yeah.
what we know at 50 that we didn't know when we were young is that there's so much more that fulfills you, and it's usually attached to service. If you're able to take everything that you've done and attach it to service, then all of your life experience suddenly becomes invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So I think we'll have to have you come back because I do think and I'm not just saying this, I think we really there's so much more to discuss that I think will be beneficial for our listeners. And I'm looking forward to finishing your book and also calling that out so others should read it as well. What's the best way, Coach Keren, if an individual wants to get in touch with you? We will put everything in the show notes, but would just love you to answer that.
Well, thank you very much. I'd love to come back. Guilt-Free, the sequel, is coming out next year, so we'll have an opportunity to finally talk about Seinfeld. The best way to check out my work is www.KerenEldad.com. But because I'm such a cool, hip, young person, Instagram is another wonderful place with which we answer all of our DMs and interact with people, and that's at Coach Keren.
I love that. Thank you. This really made my day. I have a lot to think about. Joseph, thanks for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to spend time with you. I'm keep wanting to call you Dr. Keren. So Dr. Coach Keren, I'm giving you that. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We know you have lots of other things and places you could be spending your time. So it's truly an honor. And to all of our listeners, keep listening. Tell your friends, tell your colleagues, tell your family about the Prime Life podcast. Until we connect again, everyone have a great rest of their day. And thank you so much again, Dr. Coach Keren, for joining us today.